All right, I'm a line check airman, and so what we get to do after a flight is we briefly critique the flight, and a flight is an experience. So we're going to try to extrapolate that into this day, and I'm going to put you guys potentially on the spot. I'm going to ask you to think about what we've been through today. We know what we intended. Were there any surprises? What I'd like you to do is identify one or two strengths that you saw, one or two areas where I think you recognize on your behalf in the part of the world where you have authority and influence most directly what you can do differently. And I'd like each of you to answer those kind of comments and questions, maybe take 5 minutes to 10 minutes each to address that. And then after that, if we don't have audience questions, think of one question you have for each other. So I'll just be here, listening to you guys have a conversation about critiquing what we went through today. We'll start with you, Eric, okay? Thank you.
Right on the gun. I enjoyed today. I enjoyed the diversity of speakers, hearing the different perspective from the different organizations. For me, this built off my experience on the ARC. As I said earlier, that having worked on that ARC for the first time, sometimes we get a little myopic in our lane on what we're doing. We want to launch vehicles because we know what that byproduct is. We know that having these effective spaceports and these launch vehicles take off, and it's cool, but the product that we're putting up in space is helping people, whether it's be for communication or navigation or imagery, whatever it may be. The end result is to help humanity. So when you see it through that lane, but then, as Dwayne today, that graphic that you showed, really highlights things really well to say, hey, this can be a little disruptive. What we're doing can be a little disruptive, and you don't see the other players sometimes. Getting the perspective from the air traffic controllers, the hard job that they have, the impact of the other players on the industry, the airlines, for instance. I'm a tremendous, as I was talking to Steve last night, I'm a tremendous user of the airlines, United in particular. And how upset you get when you're sitting on the tarmac saying, why the hell are we delayed? And that unknown. And God forbid if it's because of a space launch. Now we know it's an off shot, but that is an issue. And the other thing I think we have focused on, so you hear from air traffic control, the airlines, with the pilots, what your concerns are. And again, why I think we are very closely aligned is because your concern and our concern it really rises to the top. It's safety. Absolutely. First and foremost, safety. If we are not a safe industry, we won't be an industry. And as Scott said, one anomaly from the launch industry, although it would be completely an offset, it has it's the attention goes to it. I've seen it. I've seen that happen. So we have to continue to focus on best practices on safety. So I think we're very, very closely aligned on that. And resources. Resources is a huge thing. As I listened to Paul up there talking about just the endless cycle that he has to go through, and everyone's resource constricted, yes. Right? Yeah. But the cycle that you have to go through to make these advancements, make these upgrades, and we're putting more and more pressure on the system for all the right reasons, but we have to keep moving with the pace of technology and the pace of innovation, and I think we're failing on that. Now I certainly could find other areas. Working in the Pentagon, when you see $750 billion spent, I'm like, yeah, can't we spare a couple $100 million here? Would anyone even notice? I often joke that that's some office's coffee budget, what we could use to upgrade some of these systems over there. And we need to be mindful of that. I think those are some of the areas we have to focus on as the technology is there, the innovation is there, the software, the tools, and how do we get these tools into the right hands? That's a big takeaway for me.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, today this really just affirmed my thinking that we are going down the right path. I think there's so much we have in common, and we've identified a lot of those issues. And then there are the challenges, and I really truly believe that we've set a path now for collaboration. But to have really true collaboration, you have to listen, right? You have to actively listen. And I'm still learning all the time about the challenges that you have in spaceflight. I know my area, but now we're sharing those experiences. And you heard during my speech, I mean, those early years, there are a lot of similarities. And so I just want to, I'm really happy today because I want to say one thing. I know that this was the right thing to do. I want to do more of this in a more active way. We started out with the first couple of meetings, and they turned out well, but this turned out extraordinarily well. And I want to thank all the panelists that came here and gave their time, because that's really what the big draw was, to hear your opinions and hear what you're thinking and your perspectives. And the only thing that I could say I think that we could do better is, we had an Emcee today that was on my I really want to say, you've been complimenting everybody else, but you've done an extraordinary job. I think he deserves a round of applause today. He's done an extraordinary job. But no, I am very excited about, I heard a couple of things today that obviously from a pilot's position that I am interested in. ALR, right? Alternative levels of risk. We've got a system that was basically built around aviation. And now we're trying to basically, what we're accommodating now, we're trying to integrate or go down a pathway towards some time, whatever that word is going to turn out to mean. But I'm interested to know what you think, and this will probably be the follow-on, is where our next steps are. How do we, I think we've kind of come together and we've approached the FAA about things that are important to us and areas where it could help us. I think we need to continue to press that, and I think we need to press with force, because Dr. Pace, which I could listen to all day long, he's a brilliant man. He made it pretty clear, make my job easier, tell us what you need. And I think we should really tell them what we need and continue to do that in one unified voice. And as an ALPA member, I could tell you, we cut our teeth on unity. That's basically our commodity, all right, is to build on that kind of consensus and unity. So I think that's a given. But I'm curious more about how we redefine some of this, so that it was also said by Senator Cruz. I think he said safety, but in the perspective of not being, what was the word he used? He used not restrictive, but what he was implying was that not so much so that the industry can't grow. So how do we, that's the challenge, right? That is the challenge. So what's the next step? Is it defining risk in a different way? Looking at, instead of the 10 to the -9 kind of concept, is it more of a possibility, probability kind of a thing? I don't know that much about that. I'm trying to learn more about that particular approach. So,
well, when I was hearing that, for one thing, the common thread here is the value of the communication, and what's often the source of frustration on the line when you're in a delay, whether it's related to weather or whether it's related to a spaceship launch or recovery, you really don't know the cause.
Right.
So sometimes it just helps as an adult to know why your schedule that you made 6 months ago is now disrupted, and the important meeting you're going to go to may be thwarted. So it's sometimes just the basic communication down to the front lines is weak.
Right.
And there were things I learned today that I had objections to the front range spaceport, and then I was talking to the people. I go, well, that doesn't sound all that bad.
Right.
That doesn't sound all that risky, really. And there is a temporal nature to risk management too, that these things are sort of fleeting. So our knowledge may need to expand to accept these things. What I took from, I believe it was Dr. Pace's and some other comments, is, we're still looking at the commercial space as a new entrant because they haven't participated that much. and they're just starting to become very impactful. But they do have, they're still growing. They're not the same. A rocket launch is not the same as an aircraft launch, and we have far more repetitions, I would say, statistically, data-wise, and so we've had more time to learn the lessons. So we have to allow, within this same airspace, others to learn the lessons, and we got to come up with some ways to sustain in the rest of that bubble that we operate in, the high level of safety that we've achieved, and then allow them time to grow and mature with their reps. So you're going to learn more, and we're going to learn more together as we partner together and communicate and make each other aware of maybe problems you've had or you're anticipating, and then we maybe even, and as aviation experienced people, provide solutions in support of that, even though we're ignorant to a certain level of rocketry and re-entry. Go ahead.
I just, it's great that we've found some common ground. We have some short-range targets. But we have to act, right? I mean,
yes.
We can talk about this all the time, but the part that disturbs me the most is the likelihood that we can think about this. We could begin to pressure the FAA and the government to integrate some of these, because I think people would become more comfortable if many of the tools that are available today were implemented to more dynamically manage the existing airspace as it exists today in the traffic when a launch happens. But if we have another government shutdown, really? I mean,
yeah, that's
two
frustrating.
steps forward. I mean, it's just, that's one thing. I was really happy when we went to AAAE last year, and there was a unified voice across the board of all the presidents that were there, that we all stood together with a common statement. It was like, this is dumb, don't do this, okay? But we talk about this, and yet this is the environment that we have to work in. And how do we do that? How does that affect us all? And maybe we should all pretty clearly demand that that's not a great idea. And it makes, like what Paul said, it makes you begin to look at other options to say, this doesn't work. So, and then let's face it, I mean, from the human side, I am a labor leader. I saw many air traffic controllers having to make, I call it, many probably aren't old enough to know what Sophie's choice was, but to make the Sophie's choice of whether to sleep in the car or feed the family because they couldn't afford the tolls. And everybody knows that in aviation and in space, distractions are about the worst thing in the world that you want to have. So yeah, as a pilot, I want an air traffic controller worried about paying the bills and feeding his family while he's separating aircraft. I mean, they did an extraordinary job. I've said this before. I heard people, you may have to take this from me, I'm sorry, but I got to say this one thing. But I heard I hear a lot of, people bandying about the word patriot, but I saw some incredible people working in the safety aspects in the FAA and security and TSA that went to work without a paycheck and were forced to do it. So that, we've got more than just this problem in working in that system, so.
Well, let's think of one thing you would ask of yourself as a result of today's experience right now. And in life and in learning, I find that probably the best lessons are learned maybe 2 or 3 days after the event. But you're in the moment now, and you're thinking, what do you want to do? One thing that you want to start the ball rolling action-wise as a result of today, and just share that each. And absent some question from the audience, we'll wrap things up and head on home.
It's not to say that I figured out the secret sauce in life, because I haven't yet. But one of the areas that I think our organization has had very good success in is that we focus on the issues that we all have common ground on. If I can walk into an office to talk about launch issues, and I have Sharisha and Karen and Audrey, so it's Virgin and SpaceX and Blue Origin and Sierra Nevada and Rocket Labs and the whole litany. And we all walk into that office and say, these are our biggest concerns. We all agree on this, that these are our biggest concerns. Now Virgin and may different from Blue on a couple things, but on these issues, we are, you know, in lockstep aligned. We have success on that. We are able to, on the NPRM, we are able to move the needle because we all banded together on these common principles that we all agreed on, that the way it is now is not the course you want to go, and this is the direction. And I think, as Wayne highlighted today, we are making that change. I think when it comes to areas, I think with partnering with you guys, with NACA, and you know, and the FAA, you know, on ATO, and finding those common areas, whether it's tools. We need these tools. We need the advancement. We have to move forward on this. We all can agree on this. You know, more funding needs to happen on this. And I think those are some of the recommendations. I think that was the heart of the recommendations of the ARC, and I think we need to stick by those things, that these are the things that are the recipes for success for us. And we may differ on other things. We might not agree on everything, but you focus on those key areas. And that's what Scott, and from the White House perspective, that's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear 15 different stakeholders coming in with their own parochial interest. If we all can come together on this collaboration to work together on, boom, you know, implementing this policy, I think we will have success. And success comes in small steps. Right. You know, we're not going to, you know, just do this huge leap forward, but you take those small steps. And I think from our industry perspective, we are having that success. We are moving the ball forward with the amount of success that we're having from the development of these spaceports, the process of the licensing of the spaceports, to the op tempo that is going on all over on both coasts and all over the country, and the regularity of launches. We're having that success, and I think we can collectively have that success together.
I think that would be great. I agree. If we could come together and develop a right-sized package of meaningful asks that will benefit both commercial aviation and commercial space together, have that synergy, that if we could speak in one voice like that, I think it would be very effective. It'd be a step forward towards achieving that. And I could name CNS things that I'd like to see happen from our benefit that would certainly not only help us in our industry, but it would help them by us being more efficient as well.
And CNS is communication, navigation, and surveillance? Okay.
Sorry. But anyway, and we do have, you got it?
Timing.
Yeah, read it up.
Timing. Just teed this up really
You
nicely.
grabbed it when I grabbed it. Wait, I tell you, we got the same stock, just grabbing things at the
Yeah. So we came up with
Common statement.
It's just a joint statement, and I think this is in the spirit of what we're talking about. If you want me to read?
No, go right ahead, please.
My eyes give
You
out
said
on
you
me.
didn't have it.
ALPA and CSF vow to continue to work together to improve the commercial aviation and space community's understanding of each other's technologies, operations, constraints, to explore potential solutions to conflicting demands for airspace, and to advocate for optimized use of airspace around launch and reentry activities. We agree that the status quo cannot continue, and the private sector must help the FAA innovate to minimize any negative impacts of the growing commercial aviation and space industries. As leaders of our respective industries, ALPA and CSF have taken cooperative action to solve these problems. We're working with colleagues and other key stakeholders to improve how we operate today, as well as advocating for investment in new air traffic control tools that will better optimize airspace while preserving safety as we enjoy future growth in both air and space transportation. It's right there. So I think this is a step in the right direction for us, absolutely.
So we put together a package, take some action, we meet again, we pull the stakeholders together, and let's throw some things up on the board. And we've done some preliminary steps already in that regard, and see if we can get consensus and move on. I think it would be great.
Well, gentlemen, I do believe you would pass your check, right? if today was an evaluation. Thanks for being having the candor and the honesty to express your thoughts. And anybody in the audience, everybody in the audience, really thank you very much for your attention. I do believe that still the best lessons are yet to be learned, because we We're going to reflect on this as a very heady and very challenging and complex batches of information, and I have learned a whole lot myself. Thank you both very much. Thank you. Bless you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Joe. This is great.